my God, guys. Welcome to the very first episode of Dirty Discussions with Doc. It's me. I'm Doc Izzy. You guys can call me Doc. I'm so excited to put this together. So this is gonna be interesting, right? I'm really, really, really excited about this, right? This is gonna be our space for like real, raw, unapologetic conversations. We're gonna talk about relationships, we're gonna talk about confidence and all the stuff that women want to talk about that they're afraid to say out loud, right? Um, being able to talk about things that are a little taboo, things that you may not be able to talk about at the dinner table, or things that you can't really talk about with your judgy friends, right? You could talk to me about it, and we're going to have those really tough conversations, right? So, over the course of this podcast, we're going to talk about orgasms and desire. We're going to talk about power dynamics in the bedroom. We're going to talk about dating while raising kids. Who has kids? Oh my God. We're going to talk about releasing shame and stepping into your pleasure. Um, we're going to talk about how to communicate those desires and to have those really tough conversations that you're afraid to have. So let's get into it. I'm excited. So first we're going to start with our spill the kink. All right. So spill the kink, this is the first episode, so I'm going to explain what spill the kink is, right? So every episode I'm going to look for some kinky current events, and we're going to talk about some kinky things that are really happening in the world, right? So today I bumped into an article called When Pup Went Pop. Right. So we talked there. This article is about Sabrina Carpenter, who's a singer, right? And now she wants to dress up as man's best friend. So she's into that pop pop culture, right? It's like a tongue twister. So, people have this certain kink where they like to dress up as little animals and stuff like that. And it could seem a little taboo. So she made it into an article, and that means that people are talking about her because she's so taboo, right? And it's just not normal, right? I mean, I've been to many places and I've seen so many kinks, and I see people dress up in so many ways. And I'm not into I'm not into dressing like a pup, but I do like to dress up, right? And lingerie is one of my favorite things to wear. I love going to like themed parties because it kind of puts you in character and it puts you in like a different mind frame, right? Um, so I don't see nothing wrong with this kink, right? I'm not gonna walk around looking like nobody's puppy, but what how do they say? We listen, but we don't judge, right? We listen, but we don't judge. So Sabrina Carpenter is into the pup thing, and she's there kneeling like she's a little doggy, right? And some people are into that, and it's okay, right? We listen, but we don't judge, right? So I don't know. I want you to think about, when's the last time you put a costume on and you felt like a different person, right? I feel like sometimes, I'm a mom. You, the way you dress kind of impacts how you feel. The way you dress kind of impacts how you feel, right? So, like when I'm a mom, I dress like a mom and I wear my mom clothes, right? And then when I'm with my friends, I wear my sexy clothes and I can wear my little hoochie shorts and my little short dresses and my short skirts. And I love my red lipstick. Oh, let's talk about this red lipstick and what it does for me, right? Because the red lipstick turns me into a totally different person. I don't care what the hell I'm going through. I don't care how busy I am. I don't care how tired I am. As soon as I put that red lipstick on, I'm like Superwoman, right? The red lipstick is my trademark, right? It really is. I love all kinds of lipsticks, but red is my favorite. But we can talk about the leather community, right? Because this pup pop thing is kind of part of the leather community. And by Sabrina Carpenter doing something like this, she's kind of normalizing that type of kink, right? And that's the mission. That's the mission of what we're doing here, is that we want to normalize kink. We don't want people to feel uncomfortable about showing their kinks or whatever. Now, some kinks should be left in private, right? We listen, but we don't judge. And some kinks are okay to do in public, as long as you're not offending anyone and you're being, everything is consensual, right? We do have to respect other people's wishes and values or whatever the case may be. I do believe in respecting other people, and there's a time and place for everything. So there are places you could go if you want to dress like a pup. There are places that you could go where it's welcome, right? And I can help you find those places. Reach out to me in private. I got you. Um, but yeah, there's a place for every kink. So if you like to dress like a pup, here you go. Sabrina Carpenter just made it okay for you to dress like a pup, right? The leather community, it has been very private for a long time. The leather community has been around for a long time. They've been very private, um, because it's so taboo, right? But now we have these artists that are coming out and they're making it normal, right? Now it's normal. Like you see Sabrina Carpenter dressed like a freaking dog and walking around on all fours, and it's like, oh my God, it's okay. Now I could walk around on all fours, right? And you'll be surprised how many of your friends that likes to walk around on all fours and you just don't know, right? But Sabrina Carpenter just made it popular for everyone to do it, and she made it okay. And I think that's cool. Shout out to Sabrina Carpenter, right? Say that Sabrina Carpenter knows she's being objectified and she knows the scrutiny and she faces for playing into that objectification. For her to lean all the way into it like this, I do have to stand a little. So that was what the author, the writer, right, the journalist wrote. She wants to stand her for knowing that she's being objectified. Well, some people like to be objectified. Objectification is a type of, and again, there's a time and place for everything. I think I might like that too, depending on who does it. Everybody can't objectify me, right? You got to have a certain boss kind of swag to kind of get me to be like, oh yeah, daddy, tell me what to do. I'll get on all fours, right? But she's making it okay, and then like she's not caring, right? So this author, this journalist who actually wrote this, let me explain what pup play is, right? Pup play, as they say in the article, right, is more than, it's about more than power, but it is a big part of it, especially the reality that pups willingly give power over rather than having it taken away, right? So it's, so some people don't like the idea of having someone overpower them, right? But you have to think about the other side of how empowering it is when you actually give that power to someone. It's like, I have the power to give it, and I also have the power to take it away. Right. So this whole pup play kink plays out where the person is being submissive, right? And most people don't understand what being submissive really is, right? So a lot of people say that this pup play culture was more in the homosexual community, and this whole leather community was mostly homosexual, right? But it seems like it's being mainstream now. So now it seems like more straight women are joining forces with this um leather community than before. And says, with that being said, I think that there are similar thought processes around power occurring here. So they're talking about the pup play. There's still a power exchange, right? They said, I think a lot of queer sexual subcultures, especially those that have to do with power play, and most of them do to some degree, have emerged from the fact that we have historically been and presently are incredibly disempowered. Queer leather people know all too well of the eroticism that can result from fetishizing your own objection. We also know that while dynamics in the bedroom are heightened fantasy, they reflect the power differentials that undergird every relationship. So every relationship has a power dynamic, right? And some of these BDSM culture is just emphasized, right? It's heightened. So it makes sense that at a time where trade wives are on the rise, your body, my choice is a horrifyingly common refrain among the manosphere. Some will respond by exaggerating that power difference between men and women to the degree of owner and dog. Hmm. So, and since 50 Shades of Grey busted down the doors for BDSM aesthetics to enter the straight mainstream a decade ago, this seems almost logical, if perhaps unexpected evolution. So, ever since that whole 50 Shades of Grey movie came out, it's like a lot of these kinks are being a little more normalized, right? A lot of people didn't know what BDSM was. People didn't know what a sex room was. People didn't know about all these whips and toys, or maybe they knew about it, but they thought it was like weird. But then here comes 50 Shades of Grey, and now it's like popular and it's common, and now all the women want to bend over and get spanked and tied. All right, guys, so we're going to get into our next segment, and this is called the Dirty Deep Dive. And this is going to be where we get into like the meat and potatoes of the conversation, right? So tonight's topic is, why are women so ashamed to talk about sex? Think about it, right? Um, I don't, I can't speak for everyone, but I come from a very, very, very traditional family. My family is super Catholic, super no sex before marriage. Most of my cousins were like married as teenagers because the first boyfriend you had to be like, you got to be ready to get married, right? And I'm like the much younger cousin. So I saw that happening and I was like, that can't be me. That can't be me. Right. So sex was not something that people in my family really talked about, especially not the women. Um, Sex is something that like I sometimes talk, and the reason why I'm bringing this up and the reason why I created this podcast, right, is because I like to tell dirty jokes. This is what it is. I like to take blah, 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 blah. I like to tell dirty jokes. I like to talk about sex. If I had a great encounter with someone, I want to run and tell my friends what I did. um, I like to learn about sex, growing up, because my family was so reserved. I was very reserved growing up. And I was also very shy, super shy. And sex was more like to kind of please a guy, but I didn't really know how to please myself. It was more for the person than for me. It was like, okay, when the guy wants it, how the guy wants it. Let me do this because if I don't do it, someone else will, right? But it wasn't like for my own pleasure until I got much older, right? I didn't learn how to squirt till I was 40. Do you believe that? I was having a conversation with my aunt, and she is 67 years old. And I was telling her about this podcast, right? Because now I talk about sex to everybody. I don't care. I have no shame whatsoever. So my super religious aunt, and I'm like, Diti, I'm doing this podcast and I'm like educating people on sex. And my aunt told me, she's like, there's so many women my age that never had an orgasm and don't know what an orgasm is. And I'm like, Dia, you know what an orgasm is? And she was like, yeah, everyone should have one. And I'm like, ooh. We never had this conversation until I was 40, and it was because I brought it up. So that's the reason why I'm kind of like bringing this in. In my family is like, oh, women who like sex are bad. Women who talk about sex are bad. And this myth that, good girls are not aggressive and good girls don't say what they want, right? Well, this good girl, I'm a good girl at being naughty. You know what I'm saying? I like when daddy tells me I'm a good girl after I did a good job. Anyway, but we wanna blow up that myth of being a good girl and how that kind of hinders our pleasure, right? Because we're so afraid to talk about the things that we want. And what I've learned in my big age is that a closed mouth don't get fed. And a closed mouth can't give head either. Open wide, bitch. Anyway, so a closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? So when women don't express what they want, you're giving the man absolute control, but it's kind of absolute control in the wrong way, right? Because it's absolute control for his pleasure. I like to give my man absolute control, but absolute control in a way where I'm benefiting from it, right? But if you don't talk about what you want and you're afraid to say, hey, I like it like this. Hey, slow down. Take your time. A little harder, a little more, a little less pressure, a little more pressure. Hit it right here. Touch me there. Kiss me here. Smell me there. Right? And if you're afraid to say what you want, you're not going to get what you want. You're never going to get what you want if you don't say what you want. And we can't expect men to be mind readers or women, whatever it is that your preference is at the time, you know. You can't expect your partner to be a mind reader. So ladies, I challenge you to get in the bedroom and tell your man what you want, right? Tell yourself what you want. You know, a lot of women don't even know what they want themselves. Like, so what do you like? I don't know. That's so sad to me. And I could relate. I'm not judging because there was a time in my life where I didn't really know what I want. And there was a time where I didn't know what I liked. And then when I did know what I like, it was like, damn, I don't want to say this because somebody's going to judge me. Right? So a lot of times we don't talk about what we want because we feel ashamed. And it's like, oh, if I'm too aggressive, he's not going to like me because men don't like, we're taught that men don't like women that are aggressive, right? We're taught. But men really do like when women take control. I promise you, ladies. I promise you. But we're taught that men don't like women that are aggressive. So we think that, oh my God, if I say this, he's going to think I'm too promiscuous and then he's not going to respect me, right? I had an ex tell me, which is another reason I'm doing this podcast. One of my exes told me, I should have known you was a whore by the way you was sucking my dick. And I'm like, well, you loved how I suck your dick though, right? You wasn't complaining when your dick was in my mouth, right? But now it makes you a little insecure because I was too comfortable with it, right? And I enjoyed it because I enjoy sucking dick, right? So it bothered him. It's like, especially once I broke up with him, right? Because now somebody else is gonna get that. Poor man, right? Anyway, so that shame is like, oh my God, what if I suck his dick too good? And now he thinks I'm a whore because I'm sucking his dick too good. Like, why would you feel bad about being good at having sex? Sex is a natural thing. Sex is a necessary thing. Sex is good for your physical, emotional, and mental well-being, right? Um, the whole world revolves around sex. So again, why are we so afraid to talk about sex? If people didn't have sex, we wouldn't even be here. Right? I'm here because my parents was fucking. And if my parents weren't fucking, I wouldn't fucking be here. And neither would the fuck you if your parents wasn't fucking. So guess what? I have news for you. Your parents were fucking. Right? Parents fuck. That's what we do, right? So we're going to also talk about dating while having children because it's not easy. I am a single mom of two beautiful girls with big personalities. One of my daughters is entering adulthood. So we be now having these sex conversations that require lots of whiskey on my end and 5 feet distance because I don't want to magically, right? Because it's just weird talking about sex with your daughter, but I like that we are in this space now where she feels comfortable talking to me and asking me about something and not feeling judged, right? So she'd be like, Mom. So one day my daughter calls me and she knows that I'm doing this kink stuff, right? She knows about my slutty slumber parties. And she's like, Mom, do you watch people have sex? And I said, sometimes, yeah. So she's like, so you're a voyeur, right? So now I'm like, how the fuck you know that word? Yeah, I'm a voyeur, right? So then she's like, so do you have sex in front of people? And I said, well, sometimes, yeah, with my partner, because when I'm single, I don't like people to know my whole facts. But if I'm with my man, psst, give it to me. I don't give a fuck who's watching. That's my man, right? So I explained that to her because being open about having sex doesn't mean you're a whore, and it doesn't mean that you're for everyone, right? And I think that's the misconception that people have. I feel like people are afraid to express their sexuality and their sensuality because they're afraid of being judged. But being sensual and sexual doesn't mean that you're promiscuous. And it doesn't mean that you're for everybody. And it doesn't mean that you're easy. Right. So I had this conversation with my daughter, and it was hard. It was hard because I have these conversations with women all the time. But to actually have this conversation with my kid was another reason that I said this show needs to happen, because so many mothers don't have these conversations with their daughters. They're afraid to have these conversations with daughters. My mom never had this conversation with me either, right? So I had to learn all of these things on my own. And you make so many mistakes in the process, where if you have these conversations with your young girls, you could kind of eliminate some of the bullshit, because now they're a little more educated and they know what they're getting into. They're not being used. When a woman doesn't know what she wants, she's now a tool for the man's pleasure. She's being used. But now I know what I want. So guess what, honey? We using each other. This is fair exchange, no robberies, right? I am absolutely here for your pleasure, but I'm also going to make sure I get mines too. So we have to have these conversations with our little girls. Um, you know, have your daughter tune in to this show, sit with your daughter and watch this show, and then maybe have conversations with your daughters afterwards. I plan on doing the same thing with my daughter. I want her to be educated. I want her to be liberated in a way that's intelligent. A lot of these young girls now with this new culture, because these girls they out there. They're all the way out there, but they're not educated. They're doing things because they think it's cool. Right. One time I was at my shop and my daughter was only like 4 or 5 years old at the time, and she had YouTube videos playing, and the music was playing, and I look up and Cardi B's making out with two girls, and I'm like, oh my God, grab the remote, right? And I go grab the remote, I'm changing the channel real fast, I'm turning the TV off, and I'm like, now, if my daughter wasn't there, I would have absolutely enjoyed watching it, and I probably wanted to be a part of it. But in front of my 5-year-old, it's like, no, right? But the problem is when these kids are seeing all this stuff on TV and they're not processing, they're not old enough to process it, right? All of these songs, they're like, oh, I'm the best at sucking, I'm the best at riding, Megan knees and all this shit. And they think that they're supposed to be that to impress people or to fit in, right? No, be that because that's who you want to be. And be that because you get pleasure from it and you like it. And because you're old enough to give consent and you know what you're getting into, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with being that. I love it, right? But there's a time and place. There's a way to do it so you could still be classy, right? And these are the conversations that we have to have with our young girls, because they just out here looking messy and trashy, right? And being sexually liberated doesn't mean you have to be messy or trashy, right? There's a time and place for all of these things. And whatever your kink is, there's a place where you could absolutely walk around and be free and be who you want to be, right? So we need to have these tough conversations, and that's why we're having these dirty discussions with Doc. And this is why you're going to feel comfortable talking about these things. You're going to get in the bedroom with your man and you're going to be comfortable saying exactly what you want, right? We're going to have these conversations that you can't have at the dinner table, but at my dinner table you can, when my kids ain't there, but we having dinner, we can absolutely have these conversations. Just so you know, I like to eat. Let's talk about religion, right? Because religion plays a big part in why people feel ashamed to have sex, right? Now, I respect everyone's religion, and most of the time I don't like to have conversations about politics or religion because it causes problems. But I'm going to bring it up shortly, briefly for this segment, only because religion does play a part, in people being ashamed of sex, right? Because most religions tell us that you have to be married before you have sex, right? Most religions tell us that sex is just for procreation. But here's the question I have to ask. If sex was just for procreation, why does it feel so good? If sex was just to make babies, why do I want it every day? If sex was just to have babies, why is my body so sensitive to touch? Why does my body crave to be kissed? Why do I feel that little ache in my uterus? If sex was just to make babies. No, I'm not going to knock anyone's religion, and I will not give you my opinion about religion. But I will say that religion does play a big part in why women's sexuality is so repressed, right? And there are many different religions, but the one that I know of the most is like, you know, the one that comes from the Bible. And in the Bible, those men have many women and concubines and everything, but you don't hear about women who were free, right? We were just like possessions in the Bible, right? And I'm gonna let you sit on that because I'm not gonna talk about religion. I don't want to bash anyone's religion. I respect everyone's beliefs. Um, just don't impose them on me. I won't impose my thoughts on religion on you. Don't impose your religion on me, right? But let's talk about how much time I got. Let's talk about how speaking up is an act of self-love and power, right? Because we're taught to be repressed and we're taught to bottle up these emotions. We're taught not to not to even accept that we have these feelings, right? Because sex is to have babies and sex is to please the men, and women aren't supposed to like sex. So if women are not supposed to like sex, then what the hell are we supposed to do if it's to please the man? Right? Like, make it make sense. All of these repressions, all of these reasons that women are so afraid to talk about sex or to talk about their sexual desires and everything. If it's okay for men to have sex, their body part needs our body part. If their body part likes us, guess what? Our body part likes them too. Right? So why are we so afraid to talk about it? Why can men talk about it so freely and it's okay? It's like men get a freaking medal for the more women that they have. And then when a woman is seen with more than one man, or when a woman just wants to explore, or when a woman admits to liking certain things, she is so horrible. Hello, if we didn't like these things, men wouldn't get them. Men wouldn't get them. What are we supposed to lay here and be like, oh, this is for your pleasure? And what am I, a freaking tool? Am I just a toilet? Because you could rub one out and let it in the toilet. I mean, I prefer you put it all over me. But, the toilet is nice. If it's for you, let it go in the toilet. Miss me with the bullshit, right? But why are we so afraid to talk about sex? And on Wednesdays on my Instagram page, you guys can follow me at Doc_Izzy. um on my Instagram page, I post these questions and it's called Wind Down Wednesdays. And I'll ask like an intimate question. And I'll ask a lot of women to comment on the posts. And a lot of my friends, they're my friends and they want to show love. They'll drop a like on the post, but they're afraid to comment and say, because it's like they don't want to openly admit, oh my God, on Instagram, I like sex, right? Or last week's question was how do you seduce your partner without using words, or let your partner know you want to have sex without using words? And I gave the ladies some options, like, do you give them eye contact, do you smile? And I got a lot of women to participate, but there were a lot of women that didn't. And I want to focus on the women that didn't, because I know that they have their own ideas and their own quirks, but they're just afraid to say it out loud. because they're afraid of the judgment that will come with it, right? At my big age, I ain't gonna tell you how old I am, but I'm old enough, right? I've been judged so many different ways, shapes, and forms. I've been called so many different names that I kind of like it now. I kind of like it now. I'm cool. Yeah, you want me to be a bitch? Hey, I'll be a bitch. I'm a whore. Well, I'm a good whore, right? Because I know who I am. And I know that even though I enjoy sex and I enjoy talking about it, I like educating people on it, I still have integrity. I still have morals. I have a career. I'm still a respectable member of my community. What I do in my bedroom doesn't affect the work that I do or how I contribute to my community. It doesn't affect the work that I do in making people better people, right? So my conscience is very clear, right? And I feel like the more sex I get to have, the happier you'll be. Right? The more sex I get to have, if I'm in a good place mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? Because sex impacts your health, sex impacts your mental health, sex gives you that extra oomph for the day, right? Sometimes I need to rub one out before I go outside just so I could be a good teacher of my class. I could have a good class that day, right? Um, so many people walking around so sexually frustrated, right? But if you are physically happy, right? When you have sex, let's talk about why sex is important, right? When you have sex, it makes your brain release these endorphins and serotonin and stuff like that. These things make you naturally happy, right? You need to fuck to be happy, okay? It fucking helps. So many people are walking around depressed, angry, miserable, but you ain't fucking enough. So maybe, if you got some sex and you enjoyed it and you expressed yourself and you got all the shit out of you that you got bottled up inside, maybe you'll be a happier fucking person. Okay? Take it from me. And I'm not saying, I'm not a nympho. I don't have sex every day. I'm actually single. I'm actually celibate right now, right? But it doesn't mean that I don't like sex. I'm very picky and choosy. I love sex. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing. My life is not revolved around sex. Um, I am still a productive adult, but when I do have sex, it makes me happier when I'm doing all the things I don't like to do. Okay? All these responsibilities and all these things. Life is fucking hard. Right? It's nice to unwind and unplug with a person that you connect with. And, when I find that person I connect with, I'll be back and engaging and doing what I like to do. Um, Being sexual and sensual, again, it doesn't mean you're a whore. And I want to emphasize that because so many women, like, sometimes I'll have conversation with women and I'll talk about these things and they're like, my God. And then they'll start judging me. And I could see the judgy face, or I could see it. It doesn't bother me. I don't give a damn, right? Because I'm happy and you're not. But I see the judgment in women's faces, and it's like, oh my God, she's talking about sex. Oh my God, Izzy has a dirty mouth. Yes, I do. That's why we have this show called Dirty Discussions with Doc, because I like to talk dirty, right? And life is hard. And sometimes we need to release that anxiety. You know what I'm saying? And sex does that for you. Sex is calming, sex is releasing. Um, you could still be classy and have sex. You can have sexual conversations and be classy about it. You don't have to be crass, even though I like to be crass sometimes, right? There's a time and place for everything, right? I'm not going to go to my children's school and talk about sex, but when I'm sitting around with my friends, I could talk about it, right? Well, there's a time and place for everything. Um, I love lingerie and I love getting into character, right? And sometimes I don't even need nobody to touch me. It's just the act of me getting dressed and feeling sexy. Me wearing my heels, it just gives me that little extra oomph. It makes me feel like I'm doing something when I'm walking down the hallway and everybody watching my hips sway, right? Put my red lipstick on. Um, Being sensual doesn't always involve sex, right? Um, Being feminine. Sex is part of being feminine, ladies. We're holding back this our sexuality because we're afraid to be feminine, right? We're afraid to be judged. We're afraid to be not a good girl. I want to be a good girl in a bad way. You know what I'm saying? I'm like a good bad girl. I'm good at being a bad girl. You know what I'm saying? I need a t-shirt to say that. I'm good at being bad. Right? But we got to think about culture and the media's influence on sexual silence, right? Because I feel like the media has sex all fucked up too. Because the media is over sexualized now. Everything is over sexualized, right? And again, as open as I am about sex, I still feel there's a time and place for everything. I don't want to be watching a music video. Every music video is like a porn now, right? I like porn, but when I'm in private, I want to watch porn. I don't want to watch porn in public. You know, again, nothing wrong with porn, but I don't think that every music video should be porn. A lot of kids listen to all this music and watch this stuff. There's rules to this shit. There's rules to being expressive, right? And we're gonna talk. We're gonna do an episode on the rules of how to express yourself because there really is a time and place for these things, right? So I'm excited about that one. Stay tuned for that. What else? How much time I got left? 5 minutes. Ooh, ooh. So for my last 5 minutes, I have a challenge for my ladies that are tuning in. I would like for you. So it's gonna be 2 challenges. The first challenge is to sit by yourself with a pen and paper and be honest with yourself about the things that you enjoy about sex. Write it down. Write it down just for yourself. You don't have to share it with anyone. You could write it down and burn it afterwards. So there's no evidence, right? No face, no case. Write it down and burn it if you want. So you don't have to worry about being ashamed of someone finding it, right? Speaking about being ashamed of someone finding it, right? I have a story about that. My daughter is a teenager, and one day I found this book on top of my bed, and I'm like, this book looks familiar. And she's like, yeah, I found it in your box. I have a box of books from my college books, right? So this book was like my journal. And I used to write poetry, and it was my journal. I would write my thoughts, right? So I opened the book and I start reading, and like the first 2 pages, I'll say my baby daddy. I was talking about my baby daddy, and my baby daddy was mad at me because I wasn't working at the time. I had just had the baby, and he was mad at me about. I guess he was stressed, bills, and everything was on his back and all this stuff, and I wasn't working. I'm home with the baby, right? So in the journal, I put, "Oh yeah," and I sucked his dick, and I made him feel all better. Right when I read that line, my daughter pokes her head in the room. She's like, "Oh yeah," and I read the book. I died inside. Right? So this is like my journal from like 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And she found it, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm just like, thank God I'm talking about her dad. Thank God I'm talking about her dad. And I looked at my daughter and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you read that. I'm so ashamed. And she's like, it's okay, Mom, you're an adult. That's what adults do. At that point, I couldn't undo what she read. I couldn't undo it, right? It was cat was out the bag. My daughter now knows I sucked her dad's dick. So listen, so I explained to her, if I didn't do that, you wouldn't be here. We had that conversation. But yeah, sometimes you want to write your stuff down and burn it so nobody else could see. But I challenge you, write down your wants, your needs, your desires, your fantasies, right? Because who you are is a lot based on your fantasies. And a lot of times we don't even allow ourselves to live our fantasies. So are you being who you are? Who are you? Right? So challenge number one, write down your wants, needs, dreams, desires on a piece of paper. Rule challenge number two, if you have a significant other, talk to them about what you wrote. Have that tough conversation. If something is lacking and there's something you would like to try, have that conversation with your partner. I dare you to have that conversation and then hit me up at dirty discussions. Wait, what's my email address? Dirty discussions with doc at gmail.com. And let me know how it went. Let me know how it went. I want to hear about your conversation. I want to know how you felt when you were writing. I want to know how you felt when you were talking to your partner. I want to know your partner's reaction because you're probably going to catch him way off guard, especially if you've never had these conversations with him before, right? Hit me up. Dirty discussions with Doc at gmail.com. Hit me up on Instagram at Doc_Izzy. Hit me up on Facebook, Doc Izzy. Hit me up on Cash App, $ Doc Izzy. I'm Doc Izzy everywhere you go. I'm Doc Izzy everywhere I go. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to walk in my authenticity. Um, the moment that I stepped into my authenticity was the moment that I embraced freedom, was the moment that I stopped giving a fuck about what anybody had to say about me. I pay my own bills. I paid my dues to society. I contribute to my community. I've been raising my children. I don't owe nobody shit. I don't owe nobody any explanations. I'm going to be who the fuck I want to be. Right. And I want to encourage you to get out your shell and step into your authenticity. And that is what we're going to be talking about on Dirty Discussions with Doc, right? We're going to dig deep into who you really are and say the things that you've always wanted to say, or say the things that you didn't even know you wanted to say yet because you haven't allowed yourself the space or the time to even think about what you want to say because you haven't been allowed to say what you want to say, right? So what I would say is thank you for joining me for my very first episode of Dirty Discussions with Doc. This is just the beginning. We're going to have an episode every single week. And what I will say to you is don't be afraid to have dirty discussions. All right, guys. So it's time for my favorite segment. And this is Doc Izzy Uncensored Ask Doc. And this is the segment where you get to ask me questions and I'll answer it here for you, right? So in the future, if you want to ask me any questions, you can email me at dirtydiscussionswithdoc@gmail.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Doc_Izzy, or you can send me a DM on Facebook, Doc Izzy, right? But either way, I love this segment because this is where we get to connect. And this is where you get to ask me your questions and I can give you my real, raw, authentic answers, right? So during the week, I asked people to give me their questions. And one of the questions that I got was, I want to explore dirty talk, but I freeze up. How do I start? And I like this question because I can relate. Because I suck at dirty talk. I can't tell you how to start. I just think it has to be natural. I think it has to be in the vibe, right? And I think that the more comfortable you get just at expressing your wants and needs, you become more comfortable at talking dirty, right? I used to be so shy, so shy. I'm still very shy. You wouldn't believe how shy I really am in the bedroom, in public. I'm still very, very shy. However, Doc Izzy is my alter ego, right? Um, Irene is my name. Irene is my real name. Irene is very reserved. She's a bookworm. She likes to research things and study things. She's a career woman. She's a teacher, right? And then Doc Izzy is like my alter ego. Doc Izzy's the one who gets to come outside and play, right? So I had to create this alter ego so that, because there really is two sides of me, right? There's a side of me that really is shy and doesn't like to talk and doesn't like to really be bothered with people. I like to be in my silence. I like my alone time. And that's Irene. Doc Izzy, she's fierce. She's walking in the room. She's shaking hands. She's kissing babies. She's taking pictures. She's smiling with teeth. Right? Doc Izzy is lit. Doc Izzy's the one that makes money. Right? Because shy equals no money. So Irene, she don't really make no money. Doc Izzy is the money maker. Right? And Doc Izzy is the one who gets what she wants. So when I'm in my role of Doc Izzy, that's when I say the shit I want to say and I do what I want to do. Right. So maybe you gotta kind of create an alter ego for yourself to give yourself permission to step into that. Right. Maybe you have to create the environment. Set the tone. Set the tone. Light the candles. Put the red light bulb in or the purple light bulb in. Put the lingerie on. Put the red lipstick on. And get yourself in that mind state where you feel like you could say what you want to say. Get yourself in that mind state where you feel like you could be who you want to be. Right. So if I was to tell you where to start, that would be it for me. It would be creating that environment where you're in control and you can say what you want and you don't care about the person's reaction. Right. Because a lot of times we repress things as women because we're afraid of the reaction we're going to get. Right. So two things can happen. Three things can happen. One, the person thinks you're absolutely nuts and leaves you alone. Good riddance. He's not your person, right? Because if you can't express yourself to your person, that's not your person. You need to find someone that's willing to listen to what you have to say and is willing to oblige all of your needs and wants and desires and fantasies. So if this person makes you so uncomfortable that you can't express yourself, maybe you need to reconsider your situation. I ain't gonna tell you what to do. Right? But so that's one thing that can happen. The other thing that can happen is the person may judge you. Again, that's not your person. If the person's going to judge you, they're not your person, right? But the third thing that can happen is you could actually get what you want. And you could open up that other person's mind to make them comfortable to tell you what they want, right? Because a lot of times men are a little repressed too. They're a little ashamed to say what they want because they don't want to look like creeps, right? But I like when my man give me a little creep. I want to know what's going on in your mind. I want to know what makes you tingle, right? I want to know when I make you tingle. So I would say that if you're shy and you're afraid of starting a conversation, maybe you don't have to speak with words. Maybe you could give that little look, that little wink, a little smile. Maybe you could brush up against them. Maybe you could wear that sexy perfume that he likes. Maybe you could wear your hair how he likes. Maybe you could play that sexy music that puts you in a vibe. Right? So if you're afraid of talking dirty, try to talk without words. That's my next advice. Right? If you're afraid to say I don't know how to flirt. I have never flirted with a guy openly. I'll do the little smile. I'll bat my eyes a little bit. I guess people say that I have a flirty personality, but I don't do it on purpose. I feel like when I do it on purpose, I look like a joke. Like I'm trying too hard, like it's too much. Like I'm overdoing it, right? And my personality is a little rough. So when I try to be talk a little sexy, sometimes it don't work. It doesn't fit my personality, right? But if I could talk without words, I that's my way of flirting. right? I never really actually hit on a person and say, hey, boo, what's up? It don't do nothing for me. But I might give you that little smile, the little bashful wink, and rub up against you, smell good, um, feel that, make you feel my energy, right? I let my energy speak for me. When I walk into the room, my energy commands the room. And I don't even do it on purpose. It's just who I am, right? 'Cause I'm Doc motherfucking Izzy. When I'm Doc Izzy, right? Doc Izzy takes control. So I would say, if you're afraid to talk dirty, don't use your words. Find other ways to talk. So the next question I got was, my partner says I'm too shy in bed and I want to change that, but I feel embarrassed. I've been there. I've been there. I've been there. I've been too embarrassed even before my partner has said something. Because again, the way I was raised, my family is very traditional. Women in my family don't ever talk about liking sex or wanting sex or needing sex. I didn't know that sex was a need until I felt it in my belly. You know what I'm saying? Um, so my partner says I'm shy in bed. I would say, what are you afraid for? This person has already accepted you. This is your partner. So this person already knows all of your flaws. That little bro you got, he already knows you got it. Right? That little wrinkle, them stretch marks and all that, he knows you got that already. He hasn't had a problem with it. So what are you ashamed of? Right? Come hang out with me. And I'll show you some women I am surrounded by a lot of super confident women of all shapes and sizes. Big girls, skinny girls, tall girls, short girls, dark skinned girls, light skinned girls, white girls, black girls, Latin girls, Asian girls. I got all the girls. I'm the plug. Right? And I'll take you some places where all my girls are very super highly confident. And sometimes you need to hang out with certain people that can bring that out of you. Right? And that has nothing to do with your partner. That has everything to do with yourself. And having these conversations, right? I'll bring it back to that pen and paper where you could sit down and write those desires and those fantasies for yourself, so that now you have a little blueprint. Like, okay, you have like a little checklist. I want to try this. Fuck it. What could go wrong? Right? And then, so for this specific person, if your partner is already asking you to not be shy, you have absolutely nothing to lose. He's like giving you permission to be a freak. He's giving you permission to let out the Medusa. Okay? Exorcist on that nigga. All right? Catch the holy motherfucking ghost on that ass. You know what I mean? He's giving you permission. He's opening the doors to make you comfortable. And if this is your partner that you plan on spending your life with, right? Then why not? Sex could be one of those things where you could laugh about it. Right? It's plenty of times I've been in the middle of doing something and then something happened and it was funny. You ever queefed? That shit is hilarious. I've been dying laughing after I queef, right? So what's the worst thing that can happen when we are already in a relationship? This person is already loving me. This a person has already accepted me. What do I have to lose by letting go a little bit and exploring with him? And this is something we can explore together, because I guess what? This person is on the journey with you. You're not alone. And he's opening the door for you to cross over into your authenticity, right? So I want you to think about, what is holding you back? Are you afraid to be judged? Because this person is not judging you. Are you afraid to do it wrong? I've been there too, right? You can't get it wrong if you love it. If you do it like you love it, it's always going to be right. So do what you love and you can't go wrong, right? So you afraid to be judged? Are you afraid to do it wrong? Are you afraid of being too much? Right? Because if you're too much for somebody, maybe that person's not enough for you. Right? So I want you to ask yourself, to this person who asked me this question, right? Again, for the person who asked the question, my partner says I'm too shy in bed and I want to change that, but I feel embarrassed. What makes you feel embarrassed? Because that comes from you. And you need to sit down and make a conscious decision and identify what it is that is holding you back. Could it be your traditions? Could it be your morals, your values, right? But being expressive with your partner is a beautiful thing. It's not taboo. It's beautiful. It's not bad, right? Do you think sex is bad and that's why you're embarrassed? Or do you think you're just not good enough? You can always be good at sex because sex is normal. Sex is human, right? And if you, again, my best tip to anybody is do it like you love it. If you do it like you love it, you can't go wrong. So, what are reasons that women can be embarrassed to be free in their sexuality? Okay, you may be ashamed of how you look, but this person knows how you look already. That's your partner already, right? It's not like you're on a first date and it's like, oh my God, let me have sex with the lights off. Right? And I've been there. I've been in a position where I've had sex with the lights off. I've been in a position where I had sex with my shirt on because I didn't get these bad girls till I was 30. Right? So before, when I was younger, I was super flat chested and I was so ashamed of it. Right? Now I appreciate that I got little titties and I could go outside with no bra at 40. You know what I'm saying? So are you ashamed of how you look? The person already seen you. They already know what you look like. You're afraid of what he might say. Hello, he wants you to be a freak. He wants you to let loose. So he's not going to judge you. So what is it that's holding you back? It's something inside of you. And if you would like to discover what that is and get into a deeper conversation, again, hit me up at dirtydiscussionswithdoc@gmail.com or hit me up on Instagram at doc_Izzy. And we could go through the layers because there's layers that you need to unpack to identify why you're so ashamed. Right. And I'm here to help you do that because I'm here to have these dirty discussions with you that you're afraid to have. Right. And sometimes we need someone to make it okay for you to have these discussions. And I'm here to help you with that. That's what I'm here to do. So, with that said, I want to say thank you to everyone again for joining me on our very first episode of Dirty Discussions with Doc. And I want to let you know that we're going to have more episodes and I want you to tune in. Get your girlfriends to tune in. Make it a girls' night. Make it an event, right? Get your little wine or whatever you like to sip on. Sit down with your girlfriends and listen to the conversation. Join in on the conversation. If you would like to put your 2 cents in, send me a message on my Instagram, on my Facebook, or on my email so you can be a part of the conversation, right? But make sure you watch this and share it with someone else that you know needs to hear it. And then you guys have those conversations. And then sit down with your partner and have those conversations, right? But again, I want to let you know, don't be afraid to have dirty discussions.